call this meeting to order. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron accept the agenda for the January 13th, 2020 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin. Do I have a seconder? I have Trevor. All in favor? Carries. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Go ahead, Rick.
In regards to CAO report 7.8.2, I will be declining on that one.
Okay, thank you. Public comments. This is an opportunity for anybody in the public gallery to stand up to the podium, give your name, and you can have 2 minutes to talk about anything that's on the agenda for tonight. So it has to be on the agenda and the topic of the agenda tonight. So if anybody would like to just step up and talk to anything, it will be the only chance you'll get. Councilors will get to do all the babbling after that. Seeing none. Consent agenda, that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1 and 5.1.2. And further, the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.3 and 5.3.4 for information. Do I have a mover? I have Anita. Do I have a seconder? I have Trevor. Before I call, is there anybody who would like to talk anything in that? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Bailey. This is 514. This is regarding the House and Dam Committee. It's becoming apparent that there's confusion out there, and this is to you, Kevin, if you can help. Confusion because there's the citizen committee, and then there's your committee, the official one. I'm a little concerned about this confusion. Some think that the other one's pulling the reins, and we know that you are. So is there anything that you can do about it? Can you ask that other committee to disband, at least temporarily, while this is going on?
Through your, I guess in short, no. The citizens are allowed to have whatever committees they wish to form. There is no direct connection between their committee and our committee of council. It's no different than if it was a skating club or the Boy Scouts. I mean, they're allowed to have whatever they want. I do share your feelings on the confusion, only on the reasoning that you are right. There are some circumstances when stuff is being brought out to the public or into the media domain. There is a confusion because the House and Dam and Pond Community Committee and the House and Dam and Bridge Committee, they do sound a lot alike, but that committee themselves has direct representation on our committee of council. For that purpose, for them to have a voice. Yeah, what they're doing in for themselves really is it's unfortunate that they're using that the same content and trying to blur the lines between the two. But no, really, there's not much we can do as far as anything to do with them disbanding, and they really don't have to or shouldn't. I mean, they're allowed to have their own opinion, but as far as our committee, like I say, they're just one vote out of 6. I mean, and there's people from all sides on our committee, and that was our striving goal, was to bring people together and to have a conversation and start this conversation. They've had a much longer head start. They've had 8 or 9 years of their committee, and some of their information they're putting out now is more of a, I think they're seeing more writing on the wall, seeing that they're not maybe carrying as much weight as they had if they were their own committee pushing the agenda. So no, I don't think it's going to weigh unfairly on our committee, but I do share your restraints on their information. But it's social media, they can pretty much get away with much, and not much we can do about it.
Anybody else wanna, go ahead, Chris?
Yeah, Rick Bailey. This is 534. It's regarding the carbon tax price increase that Enbridge is basically forced to charge its customers. This is more of a personal thing too. The customers paying the carbon tax everywhere. I'm just wondering, is Enbridge paying carbon tax along its chain? Because I really hate the idea of tax on tax on tax. Does anyone know?
I'll throw that out to the council, I have no idea, Chris.
Okay.
Staff? No, I think that's maybe something you may have to call Enbridge on. Trevor?
So I suspect that Enbridge will be, or those producers will be at Roma this weekend, or next week, I guess, Monday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We could ask the question. I could ask that question if I happen to see representatives from Enbridge or Union Gas. I know I actually met with a gentleman last year that is in that particular case. He came to the previous council during the whole expansion of Union Gas into when they were dealing with Kincardine, that perspective. So there is tax upon tax. They're charging HST on the carbon tax, so they are taxing it twice. So let's not shake any stick about it. The federal government is charging HST when they charge carbon tax. So there is a tax on a tax. Whether whether Enbridge is getting charged the carbon tax, I suspect yes, but they have to have, how the federal government has put this out is they can earn credits in order to reduce if they're reducing their carbon footprint, they can receive carbon credits, how they get paid back in their large scale deal. But to answer your direct question, Union Gas or Enbridge is the only one that's going to be able to know that question.
Yeah, okay.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. Six, public meetings and hearings and delegations. The 2019 Service Awards. We have 3 service members here that are going to receive awards. And I'm going to, is this, Trevor, do you want to come up to the flagpole with us and we'll take a picture with the different ones? Is Larry Meyer here tonight? There's Larry, right in front of me. If you don't mind coming up, and we'll just go over and... Larry, how many years you been with it? It's 15 years. A long time. Of course, that was 30 when I first saw it. There you go, Larry. Valerie. I think I've done this with you before, Valerie.
Me.
30. Valerie and I go way back to when my children went to their daycare. Thank you very much. Scott, I don't think Scott Sheastel's here tonight. No, that's it. We'll see that Scott gets it. Congratulations, we love our long-term employees. Next is Karen Stewart and Verna Steffler for the Alice Munro Festival Short Story. Support for the 2020 Alice Munro Festival Short Story. Girls, if you'd like to come up.
2 over quorum.
2 over?
Yep, the E there, other way. Yep.
Oh,
That one.
sorry.
Perfect.
Alright. Okay, good evening, Ruth Bailey, council members, staff, and special guests. My name is Karen Stewart, and tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story. I'm here with another volunteer from our committee, Bernice Simpler. And I'm going to start with just a quick overview of the festival and how we got here. So the Alice Munro Festival, there's a number of new faces at the table here. The Alice Munro Festival began in 2013 as an annual festival to celebrate and honor Wingham, Ontario native Alice Munro. The festival and its accompanying short story contest evolved to expand its scope and scale following Miss Munro winning the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2013. And the name of the festival changed at that time to the Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story to reflect a new vision and mandate. So Verna will have a quick update at the end about some special items for the museum based on some of that information that I just shared with you. So she'll share that in a few minutes. So our new mission is to nurture emerging writers and celebrate short stories in the landscape that inspired Alice Munro. Goal of the Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story is to produce a Canadian literary event that is intimate, stimulating, and hopefully a little surprising for writers and for readers alike. Through the festival that promotes literacy and Canadian writers, we provide professional development and educational opportunities for local and regional writers, and readings, signings, panel discussions, on-stage events, and moderated conversations for the larger reading audience. Key participants are the emerging short story writers, and they are served by the Alice Munro Short Story Contest, which drew 313 entries last year from across Canada, and that was a 20% increase from the prior year. Guests from Wingham to Northern Michigan enjoyed 15 events during the 2019 weekend, and our masterclass series once again sold out. In the past few years, the festival has hosted some of Canada's most renowned and best-selling authors, including Margaret Atwood, Elizabeth Hay, Lisa Moore, Michael Ondaatje, Jane Urquhart, and Emma Donoghue. In May 2019, we hosted 15 award-winning authors, including the author of last year's best work of Canadian fiction, which was announced in November, the Scotiabank Giller Prize winner Ian Williams. Nino Ricci, the inaugural holder of Alice Munro Chair of Creativity at Western University, was also a guest last year, and he was our celebrity judge for the short story contest and the keynote speaker at our awards luncheon. In 2019, we added a new element to our festival. As one of the primary objectives of the Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story is to nurture emerging writers, some of which may be the next generation of great Canadian authors, expanding our festival in order to bring writers and children of all ages together through storytelling was fundamental to achieving our goals. We launched our Children's Storytelling Festival, the Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story for Kids, to bring new programming to local schools. 6 authors visited elementary schools in Clinton, Howick, and Wingham last year, as well as Effie Medill Secondary School in Wingham, and they presented to over 700 students. In 2020, we'll host a dozen authors who will lead master classes, discuss their work, and engage readers over 3 days in June. That's from June 5th to 7th. We are looking forward to even greater success, growing our partnerships with local schools and businesses, and exploring new opportunities for our writers and our readers. Unique and authentic, the festival provides excellent programming that makes it a compelling destination for writers, readers, and cultural tourists. We'll continue to expand our marketing reach to target an audience from a 200-kilometer radius that includes large urban centers and the readers and book clubs centered there. We invite you to join us again in 2020, aligning North Huron with this one-of-a-kind festival that brings literacy, education, and the enjoyment of reading to Huron County kids, adults, and tourists alike. By renewing your support, you help make festival events accessible to all. Through this mutually beneficial partnership will help increase the profile of the township of North Huron, providing benefits such as tickets to and acknowledgements at special events, logo placement on print and digital materials, and intangible benefits which include improved performance for our kids at school. Research states that children who are read to when they're small do better when they get older, as they are equipped with stronger comprehension and vocabulary skills. And teens who read for fun are also better able to clarify their career goals and understand the consequences of risky behavior. As adults, reading is not only vital as a necessary function to thrive in society, it helps develop our minds, our imagination, and our creativity. We are committed to using local suppliers and encourage attendees to support our local businesses, and events will be held in Wingham and in Blythe this year. You're in good company. These are the logos and names of the growing list of supporters of the Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story. Just before I turn it over to Verna, this piece of art entitled The Pinery was created by Catherine Weber, a professional artist living in South Huron. We are delighted to profile the work of a local artist each year. Doesn't it feel like it might fit right into a story by Alice Munro, something about something happening on the Maitland River? I think it looks fantastic. So Verna had a very special visit with Alice. She's a personal friend, and she brought back some items that everybody will be interested in becoming part of the Township of North Huron's collection. So I'll let Verna tell you about that.
Well, to start with, if you notice, this festival started in 2003. That was a year after we opened the garden, and the idea was to promote local people that do writing and write short stories. We proceeded for about 6 years, and then the rest of the committee had different jobs and they all moved away. So I wasn't about to do it myself any longer, so it lapsed for a few years, and it's been picked up again. I'm still part of the committee, but I must say it has evolved into something that is absolutely fabulous now. I started with a 1 day, it's now 2 days, and also an afternoon with students as well. And the schools are really picking up on it. So I wanted to say, with your help, our festival has certainly come really very much alive. The other thing that she's talking about is that when I found out Alice's house in Clinton was up for sale, I contacted the daughters, and they decided that a lot of people wanted some of Alice's things, but seeing as I had contacted them, they felt anything of Alice's should come to the Wingham Museum. So I now have, the last time I was down, I had lunch with Alice and her daughter, and I came home with the back end of my vehicle. I even had to put the seats down to be able to get it all in. But we now have her desk and her chair and her trunk, and I've got massive numbers of awards that she's won, foreign books that were written in foreign languages, and I now have the possession of the Nobel Prize for Literature.
Wow.
Yes. So, and I was just talking to Jenny just before I came, and there's more things to come yet. She said I probably could fill the back end of my vehicle the next time I come down again. So both of them, the one out, Sheila as well, out in British Columbia, has been sending me photos and anything I'd like. Anything that I feel that we would like in our museum, we've got it.
Verna, I think that's just...
Well, I'm a proud supporter of Alice, and she has become a very good friend. Actually, the two daughters now have become very good friends as well, so But I think it's good for our town to bring someone back that is so notable throughout the entire world that we have her. We gotta hang on to her.
That is
And
good.
Alice is doing just fine. Looks great. Having a good time.
That's great. I'm gonna take it to the council for any questions or comments. Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, you know what, my comment really is that, you know, this council and previous council have supported it with money, but I will tell you that this, festival would not be a festival in which it is without the committee. Like, the committee has taken ownership in this thing and made it survive and to grow it, with entries 20%, that is a significant growth.
Yes.
That I think, you know, this committee, needs to be given fair, congratulations for, because, you know, I remember when I became on council, it was a scary sight. It was a very scary, conversation about the Alice Munro Festival, and really the committee itself has taken ownership in that and really grown it to where it is today. So, you know, as council, you know, we you know, I sit here and say, yeah, we'll be supportive and attend and stuff, but at the end of the day, the committee is who makes it run, not this council, not the council before, and surely the council before that. It really is a committee function. So my congratulations to the committee as it says today.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Before you girls leave, I'd just like to say that it truly is amazing. It is fantastic. How many towns will be able to stand up and say that they have somebody that, though does not live in the hometown that she grew up in, actually sent her Nobel Prize back to them, to be part of them. And when I say that, I include Blythe, East Wawanach, and Wingham. North Huron is so proud, and it is just fantastic the way you pulled that off. That is just fantastic.
It was an opportunity.
I'm going to brag about you a lot now.
There's an opportunity and you gotta jump on them when it arrives.
Yes, thank you very kindly, girls.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to go to reports. 7.1, the clerk's department. Is this yours, Wayne? 7.1.1? I didn't know so. Carson, is this you going to talk to this one? Okay. So 7.1.1, I think I'll read the motion and then we'll let Carson talk to it. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receive the report of the clerk dated January 13th, 2020 regarding a potential Housing Bridge Dam Committee seat vacancy for information purposes. And further, that the council authorizes a leave of absence for Housing Bridge Dam Committee member Mike Martin until March 29th, 2020. I'm going to let Carson speak to that and then I'll call for the motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. So at the October House and Bridge Dam Committee meeting, Public Representative Committee member Mike Martin informed the committee that he'd be absent for meetings until March 29th. And so subsequently this results in the committee member being absent from 5 consecutive meetings of the committee. And under section 259 of the Municipal Act, a seat becomes vacant if that member is absent from 3 consecutive months of meetings without being authorized to do so with the resolution of council. So the next House and Bridge Dam Committee meeting is on January 22nd. So once the committee member is absent from that meeting, the seat will be declared vacant. So through email, the committee member requested a leave of absence from council until March 29th of 2020. So that would be the date he's returning. And this would allow the committee member to participate in full upon his return. And at the committee's November meeting, they passed a motion in support of council granting the leave request until March 29th. So under section 1 of the terms of reference for the House and Bridge Dam Committee, it states that vacancies occurring during the term of the committee will be replaced at the discretion of council. So ultimately, because the House and Bridge Dam Committee is a committee of council, council is responsible for determining the composition of the committee. However, as I stated already, the preferred option of the committee is for him to return. If council were to decline the committee member's request, council has the two other options available to them. One would be to declare the seat vacant until the end of the term. Ultimately, under the terms of reference for that committee, the only requirement was that there's 4 members of the public plus the chair. With this committee member, there's currently 6 members of the public plus the chair, so if council found it prudent to declare the seat vacant, they could without amending the terms of reference. And the other option would be to appoint someone to fill the vacancy. However, as this committee only operates for until June, it wouldn't make much sense to appoint a new member. So basically, from staff's comments, committee member Mike Martin has been an active participant on the committee and has expressed an interest to be kept informed of the proceedings in his absence. Subject to the member taking the initiative to keep himself informed on the committee's proceedings that he's missed, staff support the leave request. If council denies the request, it's advisable that the seat would remain vacant for the remainder of the committee meetings.
Before we go into conversation, I'm going to ask for a mover and seconder. I have Anita moving, Chris seconding. Questions or comments? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, two questions, Reeve, and to Kevin. I guess first of all, do you feel lacking a body person, a member? Are you still able to, deal with coming up with your plan of action? Do you think you have enough voices there in hands? And I guess the other question, maybe you can answer together, is I'm not sure of his, well, it doesn't matter. Is the committee of any unbalance at this point?
Through you, Reeve. After your first question, it was the thought of the committee at the time to grant him a leave of absence. That strictly was our committee's choice amongst them. I guess the one and two kind of go together. It does leave, I wouldn't say an imbalance, but it is one of the sides for making decisions will be lacking a member. The unfortunate part with him coming back in April, I'm hoping to have decisions narrowed down to recommendations by that point and be working on a working document to present to council by that time. So their vote would have been decided before they returned anyway. So I really don't know how it would affect our committee. That's yet to be determined.
Other questions or comments? Trev?
I guess my comment would be if the fact that the meetings are posted, like anybody can read, anybody can see the meetings, what's going on within the meetings through YouTube and social media. So, if there was a meeting where the impression was that a vote was going to happen and he felt it important to be there, he would still have the opportunity to be there. Just because you declared him a leave of absence, he still, if he chooses that that's more important, then he can make an arrangement that goes there. Doesn't mean that he's not able to attend those meetings. He's still able to attend. It's just the fact that because if he can't, we have to, there is no other option if after tonight, if we don't give him if we don't allow this leave of absence, the seat becomes vacant, period. Like the municipal act makes it become vacant, so we don't have really a choice otherwise. And I don't think that if you really want to be in the know of the committee, you can get in the know of the committee. It's not as if you have to be at the meeting to hear and see what's going on. I think you would know what's going on and just by watching, you may not be able to participate in the conversation, but that doesn't necessarily mean he can't reach out to Kevin or whatever to voice his concern or his issues with what's going on in the meeting outside of the actual meeting time. So that's my comment. I don't think that, definitely in support of the leave of absence, just so that it's not vacant, because I don't think it's of any value, and the committee is saying he's a valuable member, and you know he's taken the initiative to make the seat to make the absence. So I'm in support of the leave of absence.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carried. 7.1.2, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the clerk dated January 13th, 2020, regarding the municipal accessibility plan for 2020 for information purposes, and further that the council approves and adopts the 2020 municipal accessibility plan as required under the AODA, and further that the council deems the adoption of the 2020 municipal accessibility plan to be time sensitive and approves an extension to section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow the bylaw 06-2020 to be passed at the January 13th, 2020 council meeting. And further, the council authorizes staff to post the 2020 municipal accessibility plan on the Township of North Huron website as directed by the integrated accessibility standards under the AODA. Do I have a mover?
Open for discussion.
I have Chris for seconder. Could we have Carson speak to this first, though?
Thank you, Your Worship. So the Ontarians with Disabilities Act and the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act are two pieces of legislation that govern the accessibility requirements for municipalities. The ODA requires all Ontario municipalities to develop an annual accessibility plan in consultation with persons with disabilities, and to make that accessibility plan available to the public. And the AODA requires all Ontario municipalities to create a multi-year accessibility plan and update those plans at least once every 5 years, and also post those plans on their websites. So to fulfill this legislation, the County of Huron prepares and publishes an annual municipal accessibility plan under the ODA, and a multi-year municipal accessibility plan update under the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, where they update on the annual successes. And so the county has completed both of these requirements, with both of those documents being approved by County Council on their December 4th meeting. And both those documents were attached with the report. So the County of Huron Annual Accessibility Plan is a joint initiative between the County of Huron and then all the lower tier municipalities within the county, and it's developed by the Huron County Accessibility Advisory Committee, which is a committee of Huron County Council, and in collaboration with various stakeholders, one of those stakeholders being the working group of the Huron County Accessibility Advisory Committee, and so all the lower tiers participate on that, and through North Huron, that has been myself as the clerk who has participated on that. As for the multi-year accessibility plan, they provide updates to the annual accessibility plan, and this includes updates on the successes and accomplishments that have been achieved in Huron County regarding accessibility. So while these plans are already in effect through the joint initiative that has been established, best practice has been that the lower tier municipalities endorse these plans and then ultimately post them on their websites.
Do you have questions, comments, or concerns? Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, Reeve, I guess I don't have an issue with the plan per se. My concern is if we are adopting a plan from county council that is being in support of directives and stuff that's supported by lower tiers, my concern is that we post the Huron County plan on the website. If a ratepayer in North Huron wants to know what the plans are in North Huron, they don't know what the plans are. It's pretty generic, and when I read this plan, there wasn't no direct initiatives per se for each lower tier that would give them any sense about where we are on the path of accessibility and the framework. So, I just don't know if a ratepayer or somebody is looking to know where we are at, and I don't know if they are, but I don't know even if somebody were to ask me today, how close are we to being compliant with OEADA, because I don't even know what the issues are getting us from step A to step Z. So that's the concern I have with not only adopting this plan, but any plan that's come from the county coming down, because the lower tiers don't have any action plans that are notable seen in this plan that you can even show to the ratepayers, or does that make sense? Like I'm kind of rambling, but I don't really know how to specifically spell it out that says, here's what we need as North Huron to become accessible and make the OEADA work. But it's just kind of a nice generic, it seems like a nice sunshine list, and we really don't have any goal associated to the action plan. And that's, I don't know if that's a fair statement or not.
Did you want to touch on?
Sure, through you, Your Worship. So, listening to your comments, there's two things I thought of there. One would be the Huron County Accessibility Advisory Committee Working Group. So we meet usually about twice a year, and so those comments can be passed on. That coming from the lower tiers, we feel that there's not enough specifics as they relate to the lower tiers. The other thing too is, so while we are implementing this new website, in the past, what most of the lower tiers have just done is they've put a link to the Huron County plans, right? And if we feel that's not sufficient, then perhaps drafting documentation of where North Huron is at in relation to the accessibility requirements is something we could also add to our accessibility page on the website.
Yeah, I just don't want to make it so that I'm the only one. If there's 9 lower tiers, right? So if North Huron is the only one, and my comments aren't the same comments of the rest of council, don't make it that I'm different. I just wanted to know if that is a discussion at those working groups, and any other lower tier is saying the same thing. I don't know. I don't know what they're saying.
Through your worship. So that's not something we had discussed at the working group, but that could have been, so it gets approved by county council too. So I'm not sure what the discussion looked like when it was adopted by county council too, but as it gets adopted annually between myself at the working group meetings and Reeve Bailey at county council too, there's definitely going to be opportunity in the future to tailor it more to what we're looking for.
Yeah, and I can add to that, Trevor. It was a short conversation, and it was, this is what we're doing, and how does county feel about it? And of course, we passed it. If there's concerns from the councillors, if they want to forward them to me, I will forward them on to the proper people, the CAO, to make sure she filters it down to where it has to be. So that's a good comment to make, and yeah, that would be the way to go. If we have any issues, if staff has any issues, if any councillors have any issues, just pass them on to me, and I'll make sure they get to the right people, and we will address it at the county level. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I too was left kind of wondering, I know there's regs, Ontario regs from the Act, and I'm not sure of them either, because there's a deadlines that things have to be done, and I just assume that county would be mirroring that, or just making a more visual for us all. And then for us to, all we can do is adopt. We can't change anything. We can't have, all the different lower tiers being slightly off or different. But yeah, we need more details.
Yeah, Carson's going to answer.
Through your worship. So in regard to the county can only speak to where they're at in regard to accessibility compliance, right? So annually, each municipality is required to fill out their accessibility compliance report to make sure they've met the requirements, and as you've mentioned, they're a phased-in approach. So in December, myself and the deputy clerk, we completed that compliance, and just to make sure council's aware, as where we need to be at right now in regards to accessibility requirements, we are at. As more come into place, it likely myself will be bringing more of those reports to council to ensure that we remain compliant as new requirements come into place.
Go ahead.
Through you, Ruth. The reason why it's coming down from the Huron County, strictly the government guidelines are on governing governing constituents of over 40,000 people, roughly, is where the government is drawn the minimum line to that they are going to require and demand that the governments in place are compliant with the accessibility. Where in Huron County, we don't have one single entity that is at that rate, or at that many people that live there, but we are as a whole. So it falls to them to implement this program. If we had $40,000, it would be our own council's responsibility. But yeah, as far as implementation, it's just kind of by grace to push down to the lower municipalities to try and be compliant. But the only ones that are under the eye and the thumb of the federal government is Huron County, just because of the population.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Yeah, and I think what I heard from that is maybe an update about where we came from the OADA and where we plan on being in the next 2 years as a report to council, just to give us an update or flavor about where we are. Maybe that's ultimately, at the end of the day, that would provide us with a sense of hearing about this once a year. It's not going to be something that we're going to remember, and I will tell you right now, I will probably comment the same thing I'm commenting now as I'm going to comment next year at this time when this comes out. So, that's the type of stuff, if we can maybe get more frequent or more long-term reporting about this type of stuff to just make sure that we are understanding, then I think we're ultimately going to be there at the end of the day.
So I'm thinking staff takes that as direction. Okay, we're good. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. 7.1.3.
Reeve, can you slow down when you're calling the thing? Like, I would have loved to have put my hand up there too, but I didn't get a chance.
For,
Just when you're calling the question?
oh, okay. Did you have a question you wanted to ask?
No, sorry, calling the motion. Just slow a little bit to give us all a chance.
Sure. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
No. 7.1.3, that the council of the township of North Huron hereby receives a report of the clerk dated January 13th, 2020 regarding the Laserfiche project transferred to reserves for information purposes. And further, that the council authorizes the director of finance to transfer to the reserves the amount of $4,938.60 to continue the ongoing implementation of the Laserfiche project in 2020. And further, that the Laserfiche project be included in the 2020 budget. Do I have a mover? I have Anita. Rick's going to second, and we're going to have Carson speak to that one again.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the Laserfiche implementation project was budgeted for in 2019, and a total of $27,100 was allocated for this project. In February, Council authorized the purchase of the Laserfiche software for records management, retention, and process animation purposes. And since this purchase was made, North Huron staff have been engaged in its ongoing implementation. Thus far, the budgeted funds have been used to purchase the software, 5 user licenses, the annual cost for the licenses, a scanner with software, the forms portal, and 40 professional service hours, with the township using 31 of those hours already in 2019. So at this point in the process, the software is implemented. However, the actual technical configuration that is required by ThinkDocs and also the staff training is what remains. So a total of $4,938.60 in funds remains from the 2019 budget for the project. And knowing that only 9 hours of professional service hours remain, it would be prudent for the remaining funds to be transferred into reserves so that the professional service hours that are required to continue the implementation will be there. The professional service hours will be used by Think Docs to engage in training of North Huron staff, and then also the development of forms, workflows, custom scripting, change management, and project management. And these professional service hours do not expire and can be used as required, and so this will be vital as North Huron continues to engage in the transition over to Laserfiche.
Thank you, Carson. Questions or comments from the council? Trevor?
Yes, Reed. My question, Carson, is this project, is the total project, is it expected to carry over the 27,100, or are we thinking that for $4,900 is going to get us from where we are today to implementation, and then on our own, and then we're on our own from that on? Is that what I'm hearing?
We think that would be a good start to it. Basically, the key thing will be the staff training, right? So to transition our whole records management it's obviously going to be a process that will go beyond the 2020 budget period, but the key thing will be having these professional service hours dedicated to North Huron staff, so we can learn the processes and then continue to scan and implement.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. (7.4.1) that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives a report of the clerk dated January 13th, 2020 regarding the health and safety risk assessment and program update project. Pre-budget approval request for the information purposes. And further, that council hereby grants pre-budget approval for the health and safety risk assessment and program updates in the amount of $6,000 plus applicable taxes. And further, that the council awards the health and safety risk management assessment and program update to Public Services Health for Safety and Safety Association. And further, that the director of the finance be directed to incorporate pre-budget approval for the health and safety risk assessment and program updates into the 2020 budget. Do I have a mover? I have Christopher. Seconder. I have Rick. Carson, would you like to speak to this one?
Thank you, Your Worship. So, as council will be aware, North Huron staff have been engaging in discussions with different health and safety consulting firms to determine the approximate costs of what it would take to undertake an update to North Huron's dated health and safety policies. The policy update is required to bring North Huron's health and safety program into full compliance, and the scope of the project would include a gap analysis of our current policies, the addition of any new policies, and then the repealing of any policies that are no longer required by the township. So a total of 3 proposals were solicited from health and safety consultants to perform an update to North Huron's health and safety program, and proposals were received from 4S Consulting, Duncan Associates, and Public Services Health and Safety Association. And so as council will have seen in the report, these costs varied drastically from consultant to consultant, with one being $20,000, one being $10,000, but a 2-year contract required, and then one being just $6,000 at a one-time cost. So the $6,000 is the Public Services Health and Safety Association, and they can obviously complete the work for significantly less. As I outlined in the report, there's 2 reasons for this. One is that the other 2 firms, they require you to purchase their health and safety training management systems for ongoing training and consultant services. This is something that North Huron already offers this training through other means at a less cost. And then the other factor is that PHSHA is funded by the Ministry of Labor, and because they're funded by a public entity, they can do things at a cheaper cost. It's important to note that there's a minimal market for this type of work. PHSHA is one of the only consultants that we found that could actually do this research without having to purchase the training and management systems. As I mentioned previously, they're funded by a public entity. So they're quite busy performing their training and consulting services. So as a result, the firm is largely booked up for the year. However, because I had reached out to them so long in advance in 2019, they have a spot saved for us from February 4th to 14th of this year to complete the project. So in knowing that council will not have the 2020 budget adopted by in time to award them the work, pre-budget approval is required. If pre-budget approval is not received, then PHSHA would not likely be able to complete the work in 2020.
Questions, comments, or concerns from the council? Go ahead, Trevor.
The only question I have is that what plans are we going to put in place to ensure that we don't get into a familiar scenario with our policies going forward in the next 5 to 10 years? I don't want to find out that this is a $6,000 cost now, and then another $6,000 cost in 3 years, another $6,000 cost in 5 years. What can we do as staff and council to ensure that these policies are up to date annually, so that we can repeal and put policies in place to ensure that we're not continually spending this type of consulting fee on something that we should, in all honesty, in my mind, get regulations from the Ontario government that tell us what policies we need to have in place. So I just want to know what that plan looks like going forward, because it's similar to our HR policy. Our HR policies are long out of date. How do we get them back? And then once we get them back, what's the plan in place to keep them up to date?
Thank you, Your Worship. So while I can't speak to all our policies, the problem we face is we have the same requirements of large municipalities with the staffing complement of a small scale municipality, but the requirements are the same across the board. So as you've mentioned, things kind of get lost. While I can speak to the health and safety policies in particular, and in the future considerations piece to my report, it says that it's my intention as the clerk to maintain the policies and procedures going forward to ensure that they remain up to date. The problem we're facing now is we're doing the catch-up piece, right? So there's not enough time to do the catch-up piece, but once those policies are in place, it is my intention as the health and safety coordinator to ensure they remain up to date.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. 7.2.1, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Finance dated January 13th, 2020 regarding the 2020 borrowing bylaw for information purposes, and that further the Council deems the bylaw number 2, 2020 to be administrative in nature and approves an exemption to Section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow this bylaw to be passed at the January 13th, 2020 council meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin, seconder. Trevor. I'm going to have Donna speak to this first.
Thank you, Reeve. So this bylaw is a precautionary measure that we put in place each year should the need arise to borrow up to $1 million to meet our expenditures until we levy taxes on our interim taxes, which go out in February and then they're due in March. So luckily, since amalgamation time in 2001, we haven't actually had to use this bylaw, but it is best practice to have in place with our banking institution, which is CIBC. Anything further on questions?
Thank you, Donna. Any questions or comments or concerns for Donna? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. 2.2.2, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Director of Finances dated January 13th, 2020 regarding the 2020 interim tax levy for information purposes, and further that the Council deems a bylaw number 3, 2020 to be administrative in nature and approves the exemption to Section 19.1 of the procedural bylaw to allow this bylaw to be passed at the January 13th, 2020 council meeting. Do I have a mover? Trevor, and Rick seconds. Donna, could you speak to this one, please?
Yes, thank you, Ray. So again, we're getting ready to send out our interim taxes. They'll be going out about the third week of February, so we need authorization to do so. And we levy up to 50% of the total taxes that were levied in 2019. And the due dates will be March the 27th and June the 26th. And then, of course, when the final bills go out in August, the interim amount is subtracted off of that.
Questions or comments for Donna? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Thank you very much, Donna. Recreation is next, 7.3.1. That the Council Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Community Services dated January 13th, 2020 regarding the proposed work plan for the North Huron Museum Committee. And further, that the Council provides direction to the committee related to the work plan.
So you'll have to actually provide that direction.
Okay, so
To the work plan,
So we will have to give that direction after we hear from Vicky. Following Vicky, Doug Kyvenhoven is going to speak to this too. There's a presentation between the two of them. So Vicky, I'll let you start. Did I call for a mover?
It's hard to ask for a mover when
Oh,
we
that's
don't know
right
the
too.
directions
That's right
yet.
too. That's why I didn't do that, right?
That's right.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. In early 2019, council received a presentation by members of the community relative to the relocation of the North Huron Museum to the former train station in Weenham. In the presentation provided, it was indicated that the relocation and future operation of a museum at the site could be undertaken at a lower cost through the use of volunteer resources. As a result, council established the North Huron Museum Committee to develop a proposal depicting how those savings could be achieved through the volunteer efforts. As per the terms of reference for the committee was tasked with developing a work plan which will provide an overview of the tasks that will be undertaken to prepare the proposal on the relocation and operation of the museum. The committee has prepared a work plan which was attached to the report this evening for council's review and consideration. We do have with us tonight Doug Kyvenhoven. Mr. Kyvenhoven, who's a member of the committee, will be presenting the work plan in the absence of the committee's chairperson, Councilor Paul Heffler. Doug?
So, brief and council members, you probably have in front of you electronically the work plan that the committee has prepared. We were asked to prepare a work plan, and there's three parts: the project plan, the operation plan, and the fundraising plan. And so we've compiled all of that together on 2 pages on a spreadsheet, and we've assigned, there's a who column, so who on the committee is going to kind of spearhead completing the various parts of the work plan, and the intended finish date for each of those steps. And so if you look for the furthest out date, April the 20th is the date that we hope to complete all the steps on the work plan. Plans are subject to change, so we may end up being a month over that. We'll see how it goes. It's a pretty aggressive plan, so the committee's gonna have to work hard to meet all those steps. The one we did not fill in is the fundraising plan, and that we're expecting, once, all going well, the council approve when the facts are presented for being able to make a decision. If the decision is made to relocate the museum, then we're expecting it will take us a year to raise the funds in order to proceed with that. So that's the one that doesn't have a date put in yet. So that will be contingent on when the council, all going well, approves the work plan or the presentation.
Thank you, Douglas. So I'm gonna open this up to the council for a discussion and see if somebody wants to put a motion forward. Who would like to start? Paul, you can. Paul's not here. Questions, comments, concerns, ideas? Go ahead, Anita.
No, I think it's you did a great job, a very good-looking work plan. There's some things that challenging, but no, good. Looks good. Worked hard as a committee.
Kevin?
Through your review. Just in the operational plan, the completion date for January 20th by the committee, the legal ownership of the museum. That's just 7 days away.
That's one that's probably not, we might not make that one. Yeah, there was some clarification, Carson, I think, had raised that point in our discussion, and we just wanted to the committee just wants to clarify, or will clarify then, what body will own and maintain the museum. I think the committee's understanding is that the Township of North Huron will own the museum.
This is I guess to the staff or review. I feel that the whole plan here and the committee, my opinion would be we need almost a separate meeting to completely digest everything in this. Is there going to be council time allotted for us to dig into this before decisions have to be made? How is that coming? How does all this come back to council?
Mm-hmm.
Is this just it? This is the be all end all? Is just this vote here, or how do we chew this about?
I would think tonight would be direction, because there is a lot of concern. Just sort of for clarification, Doug, I don't believe the antiques can leave the ownership of the township. I don't believe they can if I recall in one of our meetings, they have to stay with the ownership of the town, do they not? You can't just give them away because, of course, I asked for, could I have my milk bottles back? The answer was, it's not quite that easy. So if you just let him answer that, and then I'll go to you, Trevor.
So you're asking about the artifacts that are in the museum right now?
Yeah, so when we transfer them, it's just not a simple matter of, you talked about transferring them and then who would own or run the new location. I believe the running or the ownership of the actual antiques have to stay in the township hands.
That, we weren't looking to change that at all.
Okay.
Like, the committee doesn't wanna
Okay.
just keep with North Huron.
Okay.
That legal ownership was more the museum itself,
Oh,
not the
okay.
artifacts.
Okay.
Just the building and the property.
Okay, Trevor, just before I go to you, Carson, Vicky had something to say.
Through you, your worship, to address the questions. The work plan is to basically outline the steps that the committee will be taking to put together a proposal that will be brought back to council. And at that point, then council will have to, they're gonna have to put together a proposal to show council how it can work, how the relocation will occur, how the operation can occur using volunteer resources. Tonight's decision is not whether or not to move the museum. It's the work plan, and these are the steps that the committee has come up with, or the plan that they've come up with, and the steps that need to be taken, and things that need to be determined in order to put that proposal together, and come back to council. So this is not the final decision tonight. This is just simply, what we're looking at, and it is a living document. And, there was projections made on the timeline and things, so those timelines may need to be adjusted accordingly. This committee's mandate or term is basically the term of council. No one on the committee wants to be here that long, but it does have a much longer term than the House and Dam Committee has in place. And things. So we do have a little bit of room there to adjust the timeline and things to come forward with a good proposal.
Thank you, Vicky. Trevor asked me now, what do you, Kevin?
Yeah, Vicky kind of just reiterated what I was going to talk about. My only question, I think, ultimately, though, is the budget that's going to come to this year is going to have some operational discussions based on the work plan that I'm seeing. So, because the motion of council was to close it until further notice, there is some information in here that says potentially opening it up in summer weekends with students and that type of stuff. Is that with the intention of when it's physically moved, or with the intention of that this is gonna happen, the hope is to happen now?
Through you, your worship, it's if and when council makes the decision for it to move.
Okay, so it's not current state, it's just when the decision is being moved, how it's gonna be operationally on the weekends and that type of stuff. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that from my perspective, because I was trying to figure out operationally from a budget perspective, what we're gonna see in the budget, which we're probably gonna see just utility costs and all that stuff in the budget for 2020, and then the future budgets will happen with regards to the operational budget that's gonna be presented by the committee, correct? Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, absolutely.
Kevin?
Thank you. No, I was just simply gonna thank Vicky for clarifying and answering my questions on that, yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Can I just ask for clarification too from either staff or presenters? Has our council made a decision to move it, or we're still, I didn't think so, okay. Yep.
Okay, so the council, through your worship, council made a decision to form a committee so that committee could develop a proposal for council to hear.
That's right.
As Vicky said, tonight, the committee is looking for feedback on the plan they've developed, and this feedback is this what council, the work council wants to see in the development of the final proposal, so that this committee doesn't develop the final proposal and then council says, oh, well, this is missing kind of thing, right?
Okay.
So basically, the committee, through Doug, is here tonight so that council can provide direction on if this is sufficient for them to continue in their progress and go forward and start to develop that final proposal.
Let's put that out, sorry, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, Reeve, I think I just wanna rear, the difference of this is that we already know what it costs to run the facility as it is today.
Yep.
Like, we already know what it costs to run the museum in its current location. So most of the activity of this committee is going to be what the plan, how it's gonna look like in the other, so that we can compare. So that we can look at it and understand what is it gonna look like, and see, does it make sense, one financially, one economically, all that kind of stuff, and the other, the qualitative factors as well. What it does for the downtown, all that kind of stuff. We can then look at both of those ideas in a one meeting, and then we can make a decision on how that looks going forward. I think ultimately, in a sense where there's not a lot of other opportunities out there that we've seen that are more economical. So at this point, that's probably where the issue is. They're not gonna dictate to us that we're moving it. This committee has an idea that it can work if we move it. They're probably going to provide more opportunity about what that looks like, so that we can compare what we have currently to what we have potentially, and then let us decide, because all council is seeing now is the 50,000 feet. We have never seen anything. We think it could be better. We haven't seen any hard numbers or any plan or operational plan perspective as it looks like. So I think once that all comes about, council will have more information to make a realistic decision on whether that's the right thing for the municipality.
So would council like to make a recommendation or a motion on moving this forward so that the committee knows? Go ahead, Trevor.
So I will move that the committee follow the proposed work plan, and come back with and provide updates to council as to the timelines if timelines seem to change, so that we know potentially, and staff know when a final committee report may come, so that we can make a decision going forward.
That's right.
Rick seconds. Any more questions, conversations, concerns? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Thank you, Douglas.
We'll get back to work.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do, Doug.
Oh, and a side note, please use the washrooms tonight. Check out the washrooms. They're looking really good. So the theater committee's been hard at work out there. So check on it.
We'll check them out. Thank you very much. 7.3.2. that the council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Community Services dated January 13th, 2020 regarding the transfer to reserves for the recreational master plan for information purposes, and that further the council authorizes the Director of Finance to transfer $50,000 from the 2019 Recreation Administration budget to reserves for the Recreation Master Plan project, and further that the council directs staff to include the Recreation Master Plan project for the 2020 budget. Do I have a mover? I have Trevor. Do I have a seconder? I have Rick. Questions, comments, or concerns? First of all, let's let Vicky speak to it. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you well know, we've talked about this over the year. The Recreation Master Plan is an important project. It's an important document that will help council make decisions relative to the current and future recreational needs of the township. The Recreation Master Plan has been scheduled to be undertaken for the past 2 years. It has been postponed due to different reasons. The first year it was due to staffing changes, and the second year it was related to the new council coming on board and trying to establish those priorities for council. At this point, there is the $50,000 in the Recreation Administration budget. Staff feel that we can undertake this project in 2020 and are requesting that council approve our request to have the funds transferred into reserves for use, then reallocation into the 2020 operating budget.
Thank you, Vicky. Questions, comments, or concerns for Vicky? I don't see a one. In that case, I call a vote. All in favor? Carries. Seven point 3.3, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Community Services dating January 13th, 2020 regarding the transfer to reserves for the NHWCC boiler replacement for information purposes, and further that the council authorizes the Director of Finance to transfer $20,000 from the 2019 capital budget to reserves for the boiler replacement project to be taken in 2020, and further that the council direct the staff to include the boiler replacement project in the 2020 budget. Do I have a mover? I have Trevor, and I have Anita seconding. Vicky, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Your Worship. As part of the approved 2019 capital project budget, staff had planned to replace the fifth boiler at the North Huron West Cast Community Complex. As you may recall, later in the year we did have a major mechanical failure at the complex. It was the compressor for the Dectron, which resulted in a report coming forward asking a report coming forward regarding an emergency replacement, but also indicated that we would like to postpone the boiler project just in case funding was needed for that project. Luckily, the emergency replacement of the compressor did not exceed the contingency fund that we have in the recreation budget for emergency repairs as such. And we still have the $20,000 in the budget remaining. We would like to have that amount of funding then transferred to reserves to be used in the 2020 budget period so that we can undertake that project.
Thank you, Vicky. Questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none. Oh, Christopher?
Reeve, through you, Reeve. Vicky, how about the sixth boiler? Is it kind of knocking on the door? Or?
Through you, Your Worship, yes it is. It is also planned to be undertaken in 2020. This particular project is a bit interesting in that they are stacked units. One is located on top of the other one, so it actually works to our advantage to do them both in 2020. so that it cuts down on the amount of labor that will be required. Because if we, for instance, if we replace the 5th boiler in 2020 and then we postpone the 6th one to 2021, we'll have to take the 5th boiler out in order to do the 6th one. So as part of the budget for 2020, we are coming forward to do the 6th one, and then that will be the last one of the budgets or budgets of the boilers to be replaced.
Yeah, I was just thinking right at the top there when it says the poor complex is an aging facility. You should change it a little bit. Getting old gracefully or something.
It is aging, and there are a lot of mechanical components to that facility. And we have had some reports come through as to give us kind of an idea on replacement timeframes for the equipment and things, and there's quite a few things that you're gonna see in the next couple of years that need to be replaced. It's just the equipment's at the end of its lifespan, so it will be coming forward.
Vicky, if I could ask, how old are these boilers we're replacing?
20 years.
Oh, they're the original boilers?
They are original to the building.
Oh, good. Wow. Any other questions or comments, concerns? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. 7.4.1, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receive the report of the Director of Public Works dated January 13th, 2020 regarding the outcome of the Carling Terrace Road Reconstruction Project tender for information. And further, the pre-budget approval be granted for the total Carling Terrace Road Reconstruction project, to be the amount of $1,634,120 plus applicable taxes. And further, that the contract for the municipal infrastructure project be awarded to Omega Contractors, Inc. in the amount of $1,619,000, $653, plus applicable taxes. Do I have a mover? I have Chris. Do I have a seconder? That was a tough one to get hands up on. I have Trevor. Sean, could you speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. As council will recall, a report was brought forward in December requesting authorization to proceed with a tender for the Carling Terrace Road Reconstruction project. In that report, we mentioned that because we expected a fairly large price tag, we broke the contract into two portions to give some flexibility to council should they want to look at it from different perspectives. The tender was put out immediately after receiving authorization. And in total, we had 4 firms that submitted proposals. And you can see the table in front of you. The proposals for the entire project went from a low of $1.619 million to a high of $1.926 million. There was a review done, and there were, aside from a couple of very small mathematical errors that didn't impact overall position, there were no bid irregularities identified. The recommended firm that council sees in front of them tonight is Omega Contractors. They provided the lowest price for the provision of the work. They've demonstrated extensive experience in similar projects, and they've actually done very satisfactory work for the township in the past. So if I may, I would like to talk a little bit about the project itself. This is a big one, and but it's certainly more than just a simple road reconstruction. This was identified as the #1 concern when we did the long-term capital plan for a number of reasons. It checked a lot of boxes. First and foremost, the sanitary section of this entire block from Diagonal up to Victoria is in very poor condition. It's old clay pipe, and it's I would say at the point where we're very concerned about it. The water system itself is currently 6-inch. The hydraulic modeling that was done by B.M. Ross suggested that if we're doing this road reconstruction, we get a lot better flow characteristics if we upsize that to an 8-inch, which has been incorporated into the design. Storm system was an interesting one, and the project involves a fairly significant upgrade to the size of the storm system on Carling Terrace, and it ensures that municipal water is directed into municipal road allowance and municipal storm systems as opposed to private systems. And then finally, I think we've all driven down that stretch of road, and the physical road itself is in very bad shape. The catch basins have definitely shifted. There's a lot of road cuts, quite a bit of road distress, as well as concerns over ride comfort. So, as you can see, there were a number of reasons which warranted us carrying this forward and continuing with it. As we put the tender out, I asked BM Ross to give me an estimate based on current market activity. They estimated that if we were to do the entire project from Victoria down to Diagonal, it would run somewhere between $1,849,000 up to $1,979,000. The bid that we have in front of, that council has in front of them tonight, is $220,000 below the estimates that were given. So that was encouraging, although it does represent a fairly shocking $3,328 per meter. One piece that I should mention that we addressed with this was, as everybody's aware, the approach angle of Carling Terrace onto Diagonal is a very tight angle with extremely limited visibility. So this project would involve a complete realignment. We would be getting rid of that island, and there would be an approach that would be very, very close to a 90-degree with enough lead time so that vehicles, including buses, could get oriented such that they were looking to the left and right, and the visibility at the corner would be vastly improved. So that did, of course, drive the price a little bit, but there's no sense leaving a hazard there if we can eliminate it at the same time. Now, in terms of financial impact, first and foremost, I should point out that the proposed funding approach does not impact 2020 tax rates. Okay, this is the funds that are in front of council. We've been basically saving up for it, and that we'll have to talk about that in a second as well. But for the road and storm portion of the project, there's approximately $814,270 required, and that our treasurer was able to find through the use of existing OSIF formula-based funds that she's been amassing, as well as federal gas tax funds that we've been saving up. The municipality collects approximately $147,500 a year in federal gas tax, which we haven't been spending for a couple of years, so we've been able to save up a little bit of that. Now, the OSIF formula-based funding, there's a big warning. For the last few years, the province has been giving us a slightly increasing amount of funds to apply towards this type of project. For this year, I believe it was approximately $316,000. They have not committed to continuing that program, so we can't. If you're to make a decision tonight, don't base it on the thought that OSIF is guaranteeing continued funding. That may not happen. But we do have some of those funds, and so we combined that, the OSIF and gas tax, to get the $814,000 for the roads portion. User pay, we're recommending that we draw $392,780, $278. So $392,000 from, the water user pay reserves, with an additional $413,000 change coming from the sanitary sewer user fee reserves. And just as council can see, the current reserve budget for balance for water is $2.8 million, and for sanitary is $2.7 million. This being said, under future considerations, I think it's important to point out that even though it sounds like that's a lot of money, that we've got some big projects that are going to be drawing from those water reserves in the future. Okay, the Hutton Heights project is estimated at $1.8 million. Much of that will be drawn off of the the water and the sanitary reserve, unless there's other funding streams that are available. And then, of course, as council's aware, we've applied for, under the OSIF, or the ICIP Green Stream funding, we've applied for a grant for the standpipe, but it's a $3.4 million project. Even if we're successful, we're going to have to fund approximately $900,000 for that piece. So there is going to be quite a bit of pressure potentially put on the water wastewater reserves coming up. And just finally to wrap this up, this is the biggest project that we've proposed in a while. The next, under that long-term capital plan, the next big project, a big road reconstruction type project, would be Mill Street in Blythe, where, as council's aware, we're trying to upsize storm systems and deal with particularly the water on Blythe. That being said, we kind of talked about the amount of funding that we have coming in, so this isn't something that you're going to see me sitting in front of you in 2021 to talk about. We're going to have to work at strategies to save the money towards Mill Street and then carry it forward when we're ready.
Thank you, Sean. I open it up to the floor now. Questions, comments, concerns, ideas? Somewhere to find money? Go ahead, Kevin.
Just a question, you said the Hutton Heights estimated cost is 1.8. In here is 180,000.
Yes, there's
Through
zero.
you, Your Worship, I was hoping no one would pick up on that. That's the point, yeah, it's 1.8.
It's 1 point. Okay.
If it was 180,000, we're doing it tomorrow.
Any other questions, concerns, or comments? Go ahead, Trevor.
Reeve, through you, Sean, can you just remind me what was the tender cost that came in this was the second time that we tendered this. What was the tender cost before?
Thank you. Through you, Reed.
Yep.
That's a very good question, and for perspective, last year we only did that first section, and the bid came in at $1,376,000. So for $220,000 more, we look at the entire strategy.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns or comments? Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. 7.4.2, that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives a report of the Director of Public Works dated January 13th, 2020 regarding transfers to reserves for information. And further, the Council authorized the Director of Finance to transfer a total of $165,636.95 to the applicable reserve funds pursuant to the information below. And further, that the project noted in the Director of Public Works report dated January 13th, 2020 be included in the 2020 budget. Do I have a mover? Kevin, and a seconder. I have Rick. Sean, could you speak to this one?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, this will be a little easier discussion.
That 95 was hard to find.
So there's 4 projects that were, to one extent or another, started in 2020 that were not completed. And what we're asking for is that the funds be carried forward in reserve, and then of course we can have a discussion on projects once we get to the budget deliberations. So the first project is the Wing and Public Works roof replacement. We had hoped to do this in 2019. We did a little bit of the preliminary testing, including asbestos testing and some of the standard preamble. We got a couple quotes and did not like what we saw in terms of the cost, because this was basically for the one section of the roof that is leaking. In discussion, we found out that if we were to expand the project a little bit, we would be able to do the entire roof out of basically a truss steel system, get away from a flat roof, for somewhere over $100,000. So all we're asking for tonight is to carry the $69,452 that we did not spend out of the 71 forward so that we can discuss that roof project during 2020 budget deliberations, particularly in the capital section. The next one is one that this council, as well as the last, are very familiar with. It's this West Cass Complex fitness area roof issue. Specifically, I'm looking at the humidity push between the pool and the fitness center. Council authorized us to spend approximately $26,000 last year to bring engineers in. I think it was money well spent. We have a very good understanding of the nature of the problem. It is a complex one, but at least we understand it now. There's $88,700 remaining in that fund. We'd like to carry it forward, and of course we'll have to have that discussion on hopefully getting the project approved and then resolved in 2020. Next project in front of council tonight, quite a bit smaller, the Stone Orchard implementation. As council's aware, we bought the software. We've been making tremendous strides with a contract employee in getting all of the data that's been sitting on cue cards and paper maps and such into the database. Blythe is complete. Wingham is, I would say, close to 50%, and then after that we've got some other documents that have to be scanned and brought in. So in all, there's $2,059 remaining from that original project. Council will see when we get into budget deliberation that I'm also asking for, I think, approximately $4,000 more. And this is just for staffing to wrap the project up. And we're hoping that for under $7,000, we'd have the project done. The entire cemetery record will be then online. And then the last one is just it's the project that never ends. It's the Blythe Pullet Cash procurement. As council's aware, our CAO as well as the CAO in Central Huron were able to negotiate with 2 out of 3 property owners to secure either property or groundwater rights for 2 of the 3 properties impacted by the Blythe Pullet landfill. The remaining property owner is the province of Ontario, so it's perhaps understandable that it's been taking a little longer to get through negotiations. So this last little bit of money that council sees before, $5,400, is what's left in the fund. We're requesting that it be carried forward so we can discuss that, hopefully complete the procurement of groundwater rights in 2020. And that's it.
Questions, comments, or concerns? I'm gonna bring up an interesting one. At County Council 2 weeks ago, or whenever the last one was, they're going to spend a lot of money on, and I don't, Sean, I don't know if it's got down to you yet, they're gonna spend a lot of money on the workshops just outside of town on the way to Belgrade. They're gonna revamp them, put a lot of money into, and they're looking for somebody to partner with. As I was sitting there, knowing the situation that our building's in and how old it is and what's going on, I mentioned to Mike to give Sean a call and maybe just get together and see if there was something there that we could collaborate on, depending on what they want to do and what we're looking for. Having said that, that's just in an employee conversation right now, but I want to make my council aware that I did reach across the aisle and I believe I talked to Dwayne about it too. So we're looking at that avenue too to see if we can save some money instead of repair. So I'm not sure if we'll just wait to see what the numbers come in before we come to council with that, but just so you're aware of that. Okay, any other questions or comments or concerns? Seeing none, I call a motion. Everybody in favor? Carries. (7.6.1) that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the Chief Building Official dated January 13th, 2020 regarding the property standards and bylaw enforcement agreement. And further, that the Township of North Huron hereby authorizes the Reeve Clerk on behalf of the Council to sign a 24-month agreement with Keppel Creek in the purpose of providing property standards and bylaw enforcement services. And further, that Council deems the agreement to be time sensitive and administrative in nature, and approves the exception to section 19.1 to the procedural bylaw to allow bylaw 04-2020 to be passed at the January 13th, 2020 council meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Rick. Do I have a seconder? I have Trevor. Kirk, would you mind just explaining this one too? Thank you.
Sure, you're good. The agreement that's in front of council tonight is the exact same agreement that was in front of you a year ago, except for 3 items that we've proposed a change on. The first change being extending the agreement to a 2-year period, just so it's not in front of council every year. The service that Bruce has been providing, I'm very happy with. We're getting the reports in a timely fashion. The reports are being put in front of council every 2 months approximately. Also proposing a 1.5% CPI increase to Bruce's salary. And the last item would be increasing the agreement to reflect 4 hours at a minimum per week instead of 3 hours. So that's the only changes to the agreement. I can certainly answer any questions of the council if they have any.
I'll throw it open to the council. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Go ahead, Anita.
We are talking about a dog counter. Would having that position have any influence on his position? In the hours he has to do, or?
Right, it's not in this agreement, but to reflect on the hours, possibly. That will be only if Bruce and I need to attend where there's a dog kennel to inspect the kennels.
Mhm.
Other than that, no.
So we are hiring a dog counter which the idea is that all the vicious dog in the township will be written up and people pay taxes on.
Yeah, so there'll be
So-
not so much taxes on, but a fee,
A
certainly.
fee, yeah,
Right,
yeah,
fee for
yeah,
the
fee,
vicious
that's what
dog.
I meant,
Yeah, so that's totally separate from this agreement here.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that, hopefully that dog counter will be going out, early February to start.
So you don't think the 3 hours he has now per week will be sufficient for when this dog counter does his or her job? Or does that have anything to do with each other?
The dog counter is totally separate from Keppel Creek.
But the complaints?
The complaints,
Shouldn't they be less when the,
not necessarily, because most of the complaints that we dealt with were barking dogs, dogs running at large, and dogs with no tags. So if the dog counter goes out and issues, tags for all of the dogs that
they don't have?
they find, right, is one. So hopefully that should cut down on the hours.
Mhm.
It may not cut down on the hours of the dogs running at large or the dogs barking. We'll still
Yeah.
have to deal with that.
Still, the same dogs will be there, yeah.
Right.
Hopefully, or not. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. There's nothing with childcare tonight. The CEO report, 7.8.1, CEO 2020-01, Economic Development and Human Resources Project Transfer to Reserves. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report of the CEO dated January 13th, 2020 regarding the Economic Development and Human Resource Project Transfer to Reserves for information purposes. And further, that the council authorizes the Director of Finance to transfer to reserves $131,837.11 to meet financial obligations and conclude economic development and human resources projects authorized by the council in 2019. And further, that the project detailed to the CEO's report dated January 13th, 2020 to be included in the 2020 budget. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin. Do I have a seconder? I have Anita. Dwayne, would you mind speaking to this?
Sure, Worship. So essentially there's 4 economic development projects and 1 human resource projects that we commenced in 2019 that we're proposing to complete in 2020. and one instance we have a financial obligation to meet. So in terms of the first project, as council recall, back in 2018, we applied and received some funding, the Liberal Prosperity Fund, to undertake an In It to Win It project, or others know it as Win This Space project. The winner of that contest was announced last June, and there was a prize package associated with that, and the prize package includes that individual having their storefront rent paid for 12 months. We started paying the individual's rent in June 2019, so we have about 5-6 months left to pay. The total project budget allocation was $18,000. 11,000 of that has been spent. The remaining balance is about $6,900, and we've determined that we'll need about $3,800 to fulfill our financial obligations. So there will be a surplus around $3,100 that will be captured at year end. In terms of the second project, it's the Main Street Revitalization Program, or more commonly known here as a community improvement plan. As council recall, back in 2018, the provincial government announced funding that would be provided to municipalities to improve their storefronts. We received $42,008 through that program, and we developed a community improvement program to administer those funds. 3 intakes of the program have been completed, and as council will recall, at your last meeting, you authorized for fourth intake for facade improvements. On the basis of that 4th intake, all of the funds from that program that were received from the province do need to be allocated by March 31st of 2020. We're on track to have all the funds allocated by March 31st as required. To date, 2 applicants. There's been a number of projects that have been presented to council, been approved by council. Those individuals have 18 months to complete their projects before we actually complete the reimbursement. To date, 2 applicants have completed their projects and have submitted for reimbursement. The other projects are either underway or they're scheduled to begin this spring. So the individuals who receive the funding are moving forward with their projects. To fund CIP projects that are approved in 2019, there is a balance of $38,630.26 left out of the $42,008. So the recommendation is to transfer that into reserves and then for this to be included in the 2020 budget. In terms of our third economic development project is the Hutton Heights development. And as council will recall, as for a 2019 budget, there was $50,000 included in the economic development budget. And that initially was earmarked for possible future land purchases. But council earmarked that money and it's been reallocated towards Hutton Heights development. Council has authorized an environmental impact study and an archaeological assessment study. And those studies are currently underway, and we're expecting those reports shortly. At the end of, as of December 31st of this year, out of that $50,000, $10,593.15 has actually been paid out, but we do have financial obligations to the consultants. So it's recommended that the remaining balance of approximately $39,000 be transferred to reserves to complete that work. And then you'll also see as we move forward some additional funds in the draft 2020 budget to continue on with the work regarding the development of Hutton Heights. And we'll discuss that during the budget process. The fourth economic development project that was initiated in 2019 and to be completed in 2020 is the township's website. The North Huron Economic Development Committee, there was a report that was received from the clerk regarding a new North Huron website. And the report suggested that $35,000 from the economic development budget be reallocated to a new North Huron website. And there was, it outlines there in terms of how we generated or reallocated to acquire the $35,000. The council awarded that contract at the last council meeting to eSolutions Group, and that work is going to be underway very shortly. The $35,000 was allocated towards the project. In terms of what council awarded was $29,100 plus applicable taxes, again to eSolutions Group, with an annual licensing or hosting licensing maintenance fee of $5,800. So it's recommended that the $38,000 be transferred to reserves for the development of the new website, and that we continue to include that project in the 2020 budget. And in terms of the last project I'll speak to, it's not an economic development project, but it's actually a human resource project. At the September 16th, 2019 meeting, council received a report from myself regarding human resource policies review and update. And at that meeting, council authorized the reallocation of $15,000 from the CAO salary reserves to help pay for a human resource policy review and update. There was a request for proposal process commenced, and council awarded the work to Warden Updegrove. The human resource policy review and update is underway. Human resources from Warden Updegrove held an initial meeting with the senior management staff on October 31st of last year. They're expected to meet with the senior management staff in early 2019 to present their findings and their recommendations. And it's expected that the draft policies will be presented for council's consideration in a March-April meeting. So that'll be coming back to council in the next couple months. To continue with this project into 2020, it's recommended that the $15,000 that was allocated to this project be transferred to reserves, and that be included in the 2020 budget. So in total, when you look at those 5 projects in terms of our commitments and the projects currently underway, it's recommended that $131,837.11 be transferred to reserves to complete these 5 projects.
Thank you, Dwayne. I open up to council. Questions? Go ahead, Chris.
I'll agree, there's just a typo on number 5. It says human resource police review.
Oh, sorry.
3 lines down. It should be policy review, right?
Yep, thanks.
Any other questions or comments or concerns? Seeing none, last chance, I call the vote. All in favor, carries. 7.8.2, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the CAO dated January 13, 2020 regarding the former Blythe lawn tennis property, and further that the council pass a resolution declaring the former Blythe lawn tennis property surplus to the community's needs, and further that the council pass a resolution to waive the requirement of bylaw 25-2008, being a bylaw to establish procedures for the sale and disposal of real, I think it should be realty property, to a real property?
Yep.
Okay, to obtain at least one written opinion on appraisal for the fair market value of the land, and further the council directs staff to give notice to the public of the proposed sale in accordance with bylaw 25-2008. And further that the council directs staff to prepare a bylaw and to purchase the sales agreement for the February 3rd, and to purchase, and the sale agreement for the February 3rd, 2020 meeting to facilitate the transfer to the former Blythe Lawn Tennis property to the Blythe Lions Club. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin, the seconder, I have Anita. Okay. Dwayne, could you speak to this?
Thanks, Your Worship. So as previously reported, North Huron, we acquired the former lawn tennis property in Blythe through the expropriation process back in 2014. And at that time, the expropriation process was initiated because there was no living members of the lawn tennis club, and there was no clear ownership of the property at that time. Due to the shortage of building lots and need for residential housing, council asked for directed an investigation of the possibility of severing a portion of the former lawn tennis property for residential purposes. Council also directed that staff meet with the Blythe Lions Club to discuss their interests and needs should council decide to proceed with the severing of the portion of that property. Staff met with Blythe Club representatives in August and September of last year. And in return, this past September, representatives of Blythe Lions Club presented a proposal for council's consideration. And during that discussion, There was reference to a motion passed by council in 2007, and as council recall, the motion back in 2007 was a commitment on the part of council and the municipality to transfer the former Blythe Lawn Tennis property to the Blythe Lions Club. So as council will recall, staff met with the Blythe Lions Club representatives back in November. The Blythe Lions Club discussed the proposal of transferring the ownership of the property to the club, and the club accepted the transfer to terms and conditions that are outlined in my report. So in terms of proceeding, at the November meeting, council received a report from myself informing you of what the findings were of staff back in 2007. And at, again, the November 18th meeting, council accepted the Blythe Lions Club proposal in terms for acquisition of the former Blythe Lawn Tennis property, with the addition of a clarifying provision that the club would assume responsibility for upkeep and the maintenance of the property, as well as the addition of a provision to be added to the agreement that should the Lions Club disband and or no longer have a use for that property, they'd be offered back to municipality for $2, which is the cost at which they'd be acquiring it from us, and to direct staff to facilitate the transfer of those lands to the Blythe Lions Club. So the Municipal Act does have a requirement with respect to adopting and maintain policies with respect to the sale and the disposition of land. So we need to follow that bylaw as we proceed with the disposal of these properties. Before selling or disposal of any real property of the township, there's three things that council shall do. The first is by bylaw resolution and open meeting declare the land to be surplus. Second is to obtain at least one written opinion or appraisal of the fair market value of the land. And the third is to give notice of the land to the public of the proposed sale. With respect to giving notice, the notice needs to identify the property to be sold, specify the sale or disposition price or method of arriving at a sale or disposition price, and indicate if a written opinion or appraisal is required and available for inspection. The circumstances, staff suggests that the circumstances here are a little unique in terms of that there was a prior commitment to council in 2007, which predates the policy that was developed in 2008. So given the history and the circumstances surrounding this particular property, staff are recommending that council waive the written appraisal requirement. And it's also recommended that council direct staff to give notice to the public of the proposed sale in accordance with the requirements of Bylaw 25 of 2008, which is the disposal policy. And further to that, that council direct staff or authorized staff will prepare a bylaw for council's consideration at February 3rd. So we will bring a purchase sale agreement, and there's also the opportunity in response to the notice for anyone from the public to attend and make any comments for council's consideration before you consider that bylaw.
Thank you, Dwayne. Questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Correspondence 8.1. Jamie McGavry, AMO President, call for action to pass a resolution about transition of the blue boxes to full producer responsibility. I've been requested by staff if we could defer this so they could look into this further before we do anything with it. So could somebody defer that?
I'll motion defer.
And Anita seconds. All in favor? Carries. Okay. 8.2, David Sparling, Chair of Blythe Business Improvement Association, the Blythe Business Improvement Association's representative on the North Huron Economic Development Committee. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accept the North Huron Economic Development Committee's recommendation to appoint Shane Yearman, sorry, Yearman?
Shane Yearman.
Thank you very kindly. As the Blythe BI representative to the North Huron Economic Development Committee, and further that the bylaw number 25-2019 committee appointed to bylaw be amended to reflect this appointment. Do I have a mover?
So moved.
I have Trevor. Seconder is Chris. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Council reports. I don't have a lot for the Reeves report. I got in late tonight, so I didn't have time to go over my calendar. I did mention that I talked to the Works Department at the county, what a presentation they made. I think we may be a nice fit for us to upgrade a little bit and probably end up being less cost than to continue working on an old one. Having said that, it all depends on what comes forward to this council. I also spoke with them about the stoplight at the Cowbell intersection there. And lo and behold, the day I was talking to him, it started flashing red. Nothing to do with me, it was already in place. But staff and I are going to meet with them and have conversations about a roundabout or doing something else with that corner. And again, that's preliminary conversations. I think that's just about it for me. There's nothing really else, anything else to really talk about. So I'm gonna go to 9.2 council member reports, verbal and written updates for the members who sit on boards. We've added to this the list of different ones that we do go to, and it just so happens I'm not wearing my reading glasses, and it's really, really small on here, so I won't even attempt to read any of it. But this will be an opportunity for any boards or committees you're sitting on, if you can just discuss with us how they're going along, so the rest of the council members have an idea of what's happening. And I think it will help everyone in the long run when we all are on the same page about a committee or a council, or for instance the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, what's going on with them and stuff like that. Having said all that, I will let you folks talk. Good, Trevor?
Yes, Bailey. Just wanted to bring council up to date about the North Huron Police Services Board. So the North Huron Police Services Board is down provincial appointee effective January 15th, I think, or 14th, or 2nd, or something day. The provincial appointee, which was Kathy Adams, submitted her application for renewal. The government has come back and said the minister is not renewing any applications at this time. So that begged the question to me to send the email to our liaison, which was Dwayne Sprague, to say what is going on, because we have now a 5-member board who has now 3 members, which none of them are provincial appointees. And Dwayne Sprague has not heard back from the ministry. They say the ministry is working on getting them rectified. They've been saying that for 3 years. So in the meantime, we have direction from Dwayne Sprague as it relates to, there was a concern that because we didn't have a provincial appointee, we wouldn't have filled the mandate. That means that you have to have a provincial appointee in order to have a board. He is put in writing that we can continue to have board meetings and continue to operate business as normal with this particular case. An email has been sent to both the Minister of Solicitor General, which is Sylvia Jones, as well as our local MPP from Lisa Thompson by myself, basically indicating that this is a travesty of the fact that you continue to keep telling the provincial appointees, which is Dwayne Sprague, that this is getting better, but yet it is getting worse. The time frame in which it takes to apply to get it to be a provincial appointee is somewhere in the between of 6 months to a year and a half. So you can understand if anybody would like to anywhere take a chance on becoming a provincial appointee, you might as well check a box and hold off. So the concern has been exactly that the board is now fairly strapped, in the sense that if myself, Rick, or Jim cannot attend, there's no board meeting. So we have to be very cognizant of that. I know myself and Carson have talked about the number of how many meetings we're having. a month. We have one monthly. The conversation is now that we don't have budget deliberation discussion, we don't have any contracts that we have to negotiate, all that type of stuff, that there is a potential that we can maybe change that framework, that maybe it's quarterly or something like that, but still get monthly reports from the commander, the detachment commander. So I just wanted to let council be aware that we are going to be running at a very strapped police services board for the time being. But in the meantime, we have, the police services board has wrapped up any and all arrangements with the Wingham Police Association. That has been rectified. We won't have any more issues or any more items with regards to the Owen Sound Police Service, because we dealt with that agreement. The Police Services Board and this council should not have to deal with anything to do with the old Wingham Police Service at this point, other than the building that needs to still be discussed. And there was some discussion from the detachment commander about how hours are being reported. So I just want, first I'll just stop at the discussion with the Police Services Board members. That was the one thought I wanted to make sure that the council understood. But the second one is that we as a council have an agreement with the OPP to provide hours of service for the duration of the contract. How those hours are being reported is very difficult because of the way the ministry reports stuff and how they flow everything up through their ministry policing bureau. So what they are going to see, and what you'll see in the future, as on these reports, they're going to show reporting for the whole municipality, but they're going to split it out between Blythe and Wingham. So you're going to see a whole picture of what North Huron looks like, but it's going to be picked on how they report based on that. What he has mentioned to me is, and I need to get some clarification on, is once they do a reconciliation annually of these reporting hours that they're doing, that there is, the way he expressed it to me and the board was, there will be an adjustment made to the what he believed is there would be an adjustment to the reporting that, or the payment that we would have to make, reconciliation done. But again, he's brand new and he's been talking with the Municipal Policing Bureau, so I'm not staking him on that, but I'm also making sure that we keep up to date on reporting and how those reports are managed to us, so that we can make sure that, if that is the case, then we can make sure that council is more than aware. And I've asked Carson to include the Police Services Board meeting minutes on, not as correspondence, on future council meetings, so that it is point blank in your head that you have to review it, so it's not just we'll look at it and hope that we never hear it again from it. So I think those are two things I just wanted from the Police Services Board that the council to be aware of, because there's been significant discussion with the detachment commander about hours, but also there's been significant discussion about the provincial appointees because of this sudden change in the minister's thought process.
Thank you, Trevor. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Reeve, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the wonderful world of volunteering. A lot of us were at the Christmas dinner, and there were 44 volunteers, and they came from sort of all corners of the municipality, so that was great. There was 254 guests, and so they all ate, and there was 45 takeouts that went along with those guests to maybe people that were shut-ins or whatever. And there was 145 meals given to the Salvation Army to distribute. So it was another really nice time for all and successful.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none. We have comments from members. Is there any announcements anybody wants to make? Anything upcoming you'd like to make us aware of? Seeing none. We have no notice of motion. 11.1 bylaw. A bylaw authorizing the borrowing of money to meet current expenditures of the Council of Township of North Huron. Do I have a mover? I have Rick and I have Kevin. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 11.2, a bylaw to provide the interim tax levies. Do I have a mover? I have Anita and I have Chris. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 4, 2020, a bylaw to authorize a service agreement of property standards bylaw enforcement officer between the Township of North Huron and Couple Creek Bruce Rockbank. Do I have a mover? I have Rick. Do I have a seconder? I have Kevin. All in favor? Carries. 11.4, a bylaw to appoint a municipal auditor for the Township of North Huron. Do I have a mover? Trevor, and I have Anita seconding. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 06, 2020, a bylaw to authorize the Township of North Huron to participate in an accessibility plan with the County of North Huron and the Huron County lower tier municipalities as described in the attached Schedule A. Do I have a mover? I have Chris. Do I have a seconder? I have Trevor. All in favor? Carries. 12, announcements. The next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, February 3rd, 2020 here in the chambers. The next North Huron Police Services Board will be held on Tuesday, January 14th here in the chambers. The next North Huron Museum Committee meeting will be held Monday, January 20th, and it's here in the council chambers. The next House and Dam Bridge Committee meeting will be held on Wednesday, January 22nd at 4 o'clock, and it'll be in the chambers. The next strategic plan meeting will be held on Thursday, January 23rd at 2 o'clock here in the chambers. And the first draft 2020 budget meeting will be held Friday, January 24th here in the chambers again at 12 o'clock. 13, is there any other business? Seeing none. Closed sessions and reporting out, we have none. So 15.1, a bylaw number 07, 2020 being a bylaw of the Township of North Huron to adopt and confirm and ratify the matters dealt with by the Council of Township of North Huron. That a bylaw number 07-2020 being a bylaw of the Township of North Huron to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by the Council of Township of North Huron at the January 13th, 2020 meeting be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time and signed by the Reeve and clerk and engrossed in the bylaw books. Do I have Trevor and Chris? All in favor? Carries. Adjournment, that the Council of Township of North Huron agrees there being no further business before council. The meeting is hereby adjourned at 8:05 p.m. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin and I have Trevor. All in favor? Carries. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.